one final story, and it actually comes from the person who's the reason that we are here today, and that is Mr. Brian Burch. Can we please give him a big round of applause?
Thank you, everybody, and thank you so much for coming out. It's been my pleasure to host this program, and I'm so happy that all of you could make it out. I don't really have a title for my story, but it's about my wife and I when we went on our honeymoon to Hawaii back in 2004. We met somewhere around 1999 in, of all places, a chat room on AOL, and it was around that time where you tried dialing into AOL, and maybe about 250 attempts into it, you get online for about 10 minutes before it boots you off, and you have to try for another 300 times to get on. So we talked for about 3 years before we ever even met, and then we went out. We lived 80 miles apart when we were going out for a year and a half. I lived in Avon, she lived in Massillon. And next thing you know, we were engaged. We moved down here to Akron, and we always talked about going to Hawaii on our honeymoon. We thought this will be this great adventure, it'll be so much fun, and it really was, but the trip had its quirks to it. So it's 2 days after our wedding, and we're getting on the plane, and we fly out to Chicago, and then we're going from Chicago to Maui. And then this big thunderstorm hits. So we're sitting on the runway for about an hour and a half before a 12-hour flight. And so we get there. We got up about 3 o'clock that morning to get ready, and we're getting out of Hawaii. I don't even remember what time we arrived that night, but all we could think about was taking the shuttle to the rental car place, going 45 minutes to the place we were staying, and then finding an Outback so we could get a steak, because we were starving, and you're on your honeymoon your first night. What else are you going to eat but steak? So finally we do all that, and we get to this Outback. And we're sitting there, and we're both so exhausted, we're trying not to pass out. We're starving because all we've had to eat all day long was the little airplane meal that they give you that's awful. I don't even know what it was, but it was almost inedible. So we sit down, and I'm sitting there, and I'm waiting for the waiter to come around and take our drink order. And out of the corner of my eye, I see movement. And when I look over, there was, I don't know if it was a cockroach or what, but it was the size of a poodle. It was huge. And normally I would react, and I would probably shriek like a girl and scream and run out of there. But I was so exhausted, I looked, and I told my wife, "Bug." and she looked over, and she, "Bug." That's how exhausted we were. And so there was one of those little stand-up menu things. So I grabbed it, just as our waiter was coming over, I grabbed it and I went, wham! And the waiter's, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, that never happens here." And I'm just like, "Bug." So next thing you know, the manager's coming over and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna give you free dessert, all this," and it's just like, just take the bug and the little menu thingy away. And so finally, we go back to, we rented a condo. And the condo had this little jacuzzi jet tub, which we thought, this is going to be so much fun, but not tonight because it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. We're exhausted. We've been awake for well over 24 hours because 2 o'clock Hawaii time's like 6 hours away from our time. So we finally fall asleep, and it's maybe 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, and all of a sudden we're awoken to, and we're looking at each other like, what the hell is that noise? So finally, we get up, we're creeping around, all we hear is, we go in, jacuzzi jets are going, in the tub with no water, and it took us like 5 minutes to shut this thing off. We're pounding on it, we're trying to turn all the dials, and it took forever, but finally we got it off. And we're like, all right, so we go back to sleep. Next day, after like 4 hours of sleep, we decide we're gonna drive out to Hana. And Hana, if you don't know about it, there's the road to Hana, which it's like maybe a 40, 50-mile drive. It's got like 620 curves of 90 degrees or more, like 110 one-lane bridges. I mean, it's a very harrowing drive, especially on like 4 hours of sleep. But it's the most beautiful drive you'll ever see. There's waterfalls all along the side of the road, everything. I mean, it's beautiful. So we get there and we're like, okay, what are we gonna do? Well, we found this one place offering cave tours, and we thought, gee, this sounds great. You know, it's on this little place that has, you know, the cave goes down like 1.5 miles in, and we thought, well, I hope this tour is not sold out. So we call and we reserve our tour and we go there. We're the only 2 people on the tour. And the tour guide is mega creepy. If we didn't know any better, we probably should have just up and left. But we're like, what harm could it be? We're going down there alone. Nobody knows we're here with this creepy guy. Why not? Let's do it. So we went down, and the guy's like, okay, and about halfway through the tour, we'll just, you know, kind of relax for a little bit. He had Hershey bars with him. And so we get about halfway through the tour. We're like 1 mile underground in this cave. And he's like, okay, turn off your lights. And we're like, what? Excuse me? He's like, we're going to stop here and eat our Hershey bars. But in order to fully enjoy the Hershey bar, we must turn off the lights so that there's no sound and no light. And all you experience is the taste of this wonderful Hershey bar. So we're like, okay, and the whole time me and my wife are sitting there, like digging our nails into each other's hands, like, okay, if this guy, if I even hear him move, I'm gonna go off on him, at least where I think he is, because we have no light. So we ate our Hershey bar without incident, and we're like, okay, we're gonna survive this trip until we get 3/4 of the way through, and the guy's like, okay, now this is my favorite part of the tour. You see this big giant boulder with this band tied around it? Yeah. Okay, well, it is leaning up against this smaller boulder, which is leaning against this other smaller boulder, which is leaning against these other 5 boulders. And if you touch any of them, it's probably going to collapse and seal off the hole that we're crawling into, and we're all going to die. Comforting. All right, let's do this. What an adventure. So we got down in there. Thankfully, nobody touched any of the small little pebbles, so the giant boulder didn't fall on us. And we're crawling through this area, and he's like, and this is the best part of the tour. And he had these little shot glass thingies that we were using as microscopes because there were these little single-celled organisms crawling down there, and he thought it was the most amazing thing that life existed 1.5 miles underground in this little cave. And so we're looking at these things, and again, I'm thinking, if this guy tries anything, I'm going to kill him. Thankfully, he didn't, and we crawled out of there and left the little pink ribbon intact, and it didn't fall on us. So hopefully it didn't fall on any other unsuspecting victims after we got out of there. But we made it back, and we had the adventure of our lives. We also went to the Big Island, and we decided to hike over by the active lava flow. And little did we know that there's not a paved way over there. It's like a 1.5 mile hike over to where the active lava flow is from the parking lot. And we're walking on cooled lava, which is not very even. And of course, neither of us thought to bring our flashlight. So luckily, there was another couple there that was like, oh, you could walk with us, you know, just walk with us. They had to have been speed running this thing because we are like hiking, trying to keep up with them. And next thing you know, all of a sudden, I feel the ground give out beneath me and this horrible pain in my right foot. But we're like 1/2 mile into this thing, and I'm like, you know what? We're keeping up with these guys because they're the only people around with the flashlight. And I am not trying to crawl my way out of here. That we are seeing this damn lava flow. So we got up to the lava flow, and we got like 50 feet away from it and had the intense heat and sulfur fumes blowing in our faces. It was amazing. And so we hiked back to the car finally afterwards. We made it back with a couple who walked much slower and had a flashlight. So we made it without incident. And we got back, and I looked in my shoe, and it was covered in blood. I probably should have gotten stitches, but I'm in the middle of nowhere in Hawaii. Where am I going to go to get stitches? So anyway, luckily, I didn't get an infection and didn't need to cut off my foot and survived it. And it was the adventure of a lifetime. If any of you ever can make it to Hawaii, do so. Spend at least 2 weeks there. It's amazing. Watch out for the little rental car place beside the airport. The car that we got, it wanted to stall every time we made a turn. Every time we made a turn, we had this horrible, there was this horrible smell in the car of like somebody's dirty sweat socks. We didn't look under the seat to see if they were there, but it was awful. But anyway, I mean, greatest vacation ever.